1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to Dopey, the podcast on drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. My name is Dave, and we are in the Dopey studio, and we are putting this out on YouTube because so many people wanted a video Dopey podcast, so we're going to do that. And this episode is incredibly exciting because we have NIKKI SIXX from Mötley Crüe, which is like Dopey dream guest, and we have another Dopey dream guest, Howie.
I'm a dream guest?
No, I'm just trying to be.
Not.
I'm just trying to be friendly. Howie's an old friend of mine. He is the Dopey YouTube producer and sometime co-host of Dopey. How's it going, Howie? What do you think?
First of all, let me say it's a pleasure that I'm the co-host.
Okay.
Remember what you said the first time?
Yeah, just relax.
Thank you for letting me co-host.
I think co-hosting is a little heavy-handed.
I think it's going pretty well, and I'm very excited about this interview because I know that it was years in the making, and I think it went pretty well.
I literally wrote NIKKI SIXX hundreds of times on Instagram and Twitter. Normal. He never wrote me back.
What a surprise!
And it was never mentioned in the interview, which made me feel like.
Do you think he knew?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
maybe, but I mean, it's like one thing Chris always told me was that, like, I don't know where he saw it. I think he saw it on YouTube. Somebody who had millions of followers, right? Mm-hmm. They showed the notifications on their phone.
Yeah.
And it was literally like...
never
stopped.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like you have to shut the notifications off so you don't know.
Yeah. You can't check all those notifications at that point when you've got so many followers.
But Courtney Love always read my messages and used to respond. Like, I guess she's more interested in responding.
Got to get back in touch.
I write her sparingly. I still write her. She
reads
reads
now
them.
You're doing a thing on YouTube, and you'd love her to join.
Yeah, I think Courtney Love might be coming up soon on the Dopey YouTube extravaganza, and we need you guys. For some reason, you guys aren't subscribing to Dopey YouTube. It is free. There's tons of good shit there. There's Daily Reflections, which is, it's an experiment in kind of recovery television. But then me and Howie and special guests are tasting every Ben & Jerry's flavor in the Ben & Jerry's universe. And then we're going to get Ben & Jerry's to fucking make a Dopey flavor and donate all the money to addiction charities. And then Dopey YouTube is going to grow. We're doing Behind the Dopes, where special dopes like Don and Emily Sullivan and like who else did it? Aaron and Jess, Kent,
me,
Howie.
I won't be on
Howie
YouTube.
did a Behind the Dope.
Right.
This is our new segment, Behind the Dope, where somebody in the audience or whatever tells a Dopey story. And in Howie's case, he tells his origin rage story about how Howie is always a hair away from violent horror fury.
That sounds like me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So look for that's on Patreon. So please go to www.patreon.com/dopeypodcast and watch the Howie Rage special.
Yep.
Go to YouTube, which is obviously youtube.com, and subscribe to Dopey Podcast.
Yes.
See the magic. Become part of the magic.
Yes.
Oh shit.
What?
We didn't do this today, and we forget to do it every week. What we're gonna be doing, and this is very important for you guys, is we're going to be setting up a call-in feature where dopes from all over the world can call in. They can video or audio call, and we can do a little call-in segment on Dopey, right?
I love that idea. And also the Discord that we're trying to set up.
Yeah, you have to explain that.
Dopeypodcast.com/Discord.
Do you know that in My Little Pony, the bad guy's name was Discord?
I knew that.
But why don't you explain to everybody, because I don't know.
What?
I don't really
explain what Discord is?
Yes.
I can't explain what Discord is. It's a fucking place where people could talk to each other, and we're gonna try to start the community there. The problem with Facebook is like one channel, and all the bullshit happens on
I know,
one channel.
but there's like a good solid audience locked into Facebook, and they're probably like, I don't know what Discord is.
I don't know what to, I'm hoping that we can.
What can they get out of Discord that they can't get out of Facebook?
I think the idea is that on Facebook, it's kind of hard to have conversations in one thread with people, right? Like everything is happening in one long thread, right?
You're on Facebook and on Discord in the universe. What
Yeah.
is a better experience for you?
Well, nothing's happened on Discord yet.
No,
so.
I don't mean in Dopey. I mean in whatever you follow.
The reason why I like Discord is because you have these discrete conversations happening in different channels. So if you wanted to talk about Behind the Dope and I have a crazy story to share, I know exactly where to go to share it so that it's gonna be seen. If I wanted to share a meme, I know exactly where to put it.
Right.
Right?
It's more organized.
It's more organized. If you're doing that on Facebook, it's really happening on one channel. If you don't see it, you don't see it. You could search, I guess. But it's not. It's kind of like in the moment.
All right, this is interesting. So
No,
we're looking for a few good.
case.
We're looking for a few good dopes who want to get involved in this Dopey Discord thing.
Right.
So if you do, write me or us at dopeypodcast@gmail.com. Say you're interested. Also, send in an email. Also, send in a voicemail. Emails and voicemails get free socks. And yes, I have done shipping yesterday. Just about everybody is caught up. If you do not have your hat or socks, please write me another email and I will get it out straight away. I just got a new shipment of Oy Vey hats, and the last Oy Vey hat is being sent out tomorrow. So I feel like we finally caught up with the shipping.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are doing good. I'm very excited about NIKKI SIXX. I'm very excited about Euphoria. Just when you think that show can't get better, it hits even harder. And this week is the dopey, sensational Euphoria, where it's just it's like one of the dopiest, hardest shows I've ever seen as a drug addict, watching Zendaya playing Rue go into withdrawal. So I know that the Dopey Nation is plugged in. Howie's still never seen it.
Never seen it.
So
I mean, I guess it sounds interesting, but I don't know that I'd be able to connect with what the character is going through.
but you say that without ever watching the show.
Right.
So let's just hold all reservations, hold opinions, check out the show.
Yeah.
And then I think we're going to do a Patreon special on Euphoria with the TV reviewer guy that we're friendly with, Devin, and that'll be cool. Maybe you can watch it and chime in a little bit. Maybe not.
Can we get Zendaya?
I don't think so. I don't think we can get Zendaya. I think eventually.
Yeah.
I think
No,
honestly,
next week, I'm saying.
No, I think eventually we will be in the market. We will be the addiction spot. I think that, I mean, we're already the addiction spot for a lot of people.
I like that you say we.
Well, it's a we. It's a royal we.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a we.
I thought you were referring to me.
It's we. You're
Yeah.
part of the we.
I guess so.
And all of you guys are part of the we.
Right.
Dopey is on the rise. I do not think it is impossible to get Zendaya on the show, because I thought it was almost impossible to get NIKKI SIXX, and yet
And look at this.
here we are.
Here we are.
So before we play NIKKI SIXX one more time, please subscribe to YouTube. It's free. Please join Patreon. It's not free, but there's so much good stuff. There's the Patreon Zoom where we get together at the end of every month and we have fun. Howie's going to be at the Patreon Zoom this month.
Patreon Zoom talking about the Discord, which is dopeypodcast.com/Discord.
It's too much. It's too confusing for everybody.
There's too many things.
Here we go. This is NIKKI SIXX. It was a pleasure to talk to him, and let's play the thing. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to meet you and how thrilled I am that you agreed to come on our little show. First of all.
Well, thank you, man. I got the request and looked you up, and I was like, looks like fun.
It should be fun. And I mean, before I say anything else, I want to tell you a little story, right? I was fucking strung out on heroin and my mother was dying, and I came home and I got this. Here, make him bigger in the thing. He's got to be bigger. He's NIKKI fucking SIXX. Come on.
Yeah.
And I got a job in a deli and I knocked this girl up and she got pregnant, right? And the baby was due in February and I'm trying my best not to use. And for Christmas, she buys me the Heroin Diaries, which was the hardest book I ever read at that moment. And I blamed you for relapsing while she was pregnant. I relapsed on Xanax, walking to the deli. And that's a comedy story. This is not a serious indictment of this book. It's one of my favorite books I ever read about drug addiction. And I'm just thrilled to have you on the show. I don't want to embarrass you or anything. How are you?
Thank you, man. Well, I'm glad that you got through that, and hopefully you're living in recovery or some version of it. You're not going down that path.
No, I have 6 years, and I'm with the same woman. We had a second kid, and I just read the first 21, and I reread the Heroin Diaries, and I watched The Dirt this week. I reread The Dirt. I'm fucking all sixed out. How are you feeling?
I feel great. I'm probably the happiest I've ever been in my life, and it's an interesting thing. You read about people that are in the entertainment business, and a lot of people have a hard time once they're not at their peak. And one thing that I still love about Mötley Crüe is, like, we go up and we'll hit a peak, whatever year that'll be, and then we kind of reconvene, and a lot of music comes around. We've been together 40 years. I've seen every version of every kind of band try to knock you off the mountain or take your crown. But as you go and then you come back again and you've reached new fans, and even recently with the movie The Dirt, and it's like a whole new generation of people. Now we're doing a stadium tour, and I'm 63 years old, and I just love the idea of writing this thing out, not worrying about age, not worrying about being in or out. It's just a really nice place to be. I'm happily married. I have 5 children. They're all doing their own thing, which is a lot of cool stuff. And I have a 2.5-year-old, and that's like awesome as well, getting to relive that, but during a different time in my life.
Totally. Having a little kid with 20 years sober. I mean, was that different? First of all, let's start there. Your other children you had in and out, right, of sobriety.
Correct. I was sober, when my oldest was born, and I stayed sober in there about 6 years, and then I literally fell off the wagon, got right back on again. I had 4 years, or it was 4 years and 6. I can't remember. It was so fucking long ago. And the last time, I just said to myself, something's missing. I'm not getting it. Nobody came to me and said, you need to go to rehab. You need anybody. It was all, I understood what was happening. I had unresolved issues, and no amount of sobriety was going to fix that. I had to do some deep work, and that's why I checked myself into rehab, over 20 years ago, to get the work done and dive in a little bit deeper. So I was able to be present during all my children's life. When I went out, I think it's, everybody goes out in their own way. I didn't go out and go back to shooting dope. I thought, I did like a lot of people in sobriety. I just tried on the beer and see, well, I could do a glass of wine, since you have a line of, blow, I'll just do a little bump. And that's enough to set my brain on fire. And I started going, well, why could I not have 2? Why could I not have 4? I'm the addict and the demons inside. And I just don't want to play that game. I really don't want to play that game. I want to live in the present, and I really want to ride out my life in a way that's about creativity and living in the moment, being, I don't even know if I would say being a role model, but if somebody is looking at this, at me, they could go, wow, look at a guy that really crashed and burned for a moment in time. And she's been able to turn it around. It's harder sometimes to be, let's just say, in a successful band, and a lot of people are making money off of you, and to really confront the celebrity, the money maker, the head of the family. So it's important when those of us that are in that position can say, I did this for these reasons, and nobody forced me, or nobody was worried about losing their job. I mean, it was an inside job, so to speak.
But when you're a kid, right, one of my favorite things about you is, like, when you're a kid, you had a vision, and you followed this vision, like, to the T, and you constructed this movement, your band, your sound, everything came out of your head. like I don't think you saw the celebrity down the road, and you saw how big the fame was going to be and the microscope you were under. You wanted to be a rock star making music. Like was that like a surprise, like how that kind of came up at you?
Fame was weird. I didn't really dig it when it first happened because I was just so focused on the band. All I ever wanted to be, and you find out reading the first 21, is I just want to be in a band. I just want to be able to write a song like Mark Bolan or Ian Hunter. I just wanted to figure out how to have a groove on a riff like Aerosmith. I wasn't like, I want to be on the cover of Star magazine or something. I never really felt comfortable in that role.
And the first 21 is such a cool book because it's like, I mean, the Heroin Diaries is one of my favorite drug rock and roll memoirs I ever read. And I've read like all of them. So it says a lot. The first 21, just like the primer on how you became NIKKI SIXX. What made you decide to do that? Had you gone to Wyoming first and been like, I'm here, and it kind of flashed back because you grew up in Idaho?
Yeah, it kind of it came to me. We was going down another road for an idea for a book, and we had come up to Wyoming to stay here to look for homes, and I was just it just started taking me back to my roots. And then when we found a place that we live in, we're on top of a mountain we're very fortunate, just so much property, which bumps right up to national parks. So where we're at, you can't see anybody. And it's kind of like if you turn the TV off and the radio off and your computer off and you just sit there for a moment. Some people call that meditation. It gets like loud in your head. And you're like, wow, what are all these messages? Where are they coming from? I was literally staring at the Grand Tetons, and just on the other side was Idaho, 45 minutes away, and Twin Falls, Idaho. I could get in my car right now and drive there. And that's, in Jerome, Idaho, which is right across the Snake River, which is Snake River's right out here. It started taking me down memory lane, and I kind of asked myself in that moment, with all the silence and all the land and the wind just blowing off the mountain, like, where did everybody go?
Right.
And for me, once like we hit jet fuel, I kind of forgot to stop. I moved to Los Angeles, and everything happened in Los Angeles. And it was only by coming to Wyoming. Of course, I'm in contact with my sister and my aunt and cousins and a few old friends, but this was different. We went to the ground zero when I was born and started talking about those moments with my family. And my aunt was there. And she got to explain a lot of stuff about my dad and my mom. And as we started going down the road, I got older and older, I find this discovery of books and music like everybody else. But my imagination, it's like I couldn't get enough of it. And when I really discovered like rock and roll for real, not just like stuff on the radio, but when I started getting like, I had a little record player and I could put on a whole record, and the lyrics were very important to me, which I think came to me from loving to read poetry and read books, even adventure books. And then the music, and something I don't really understand where it comes from for me. I could just not pick up a guitar or my bass for 6 months, let's say. Not that that really happens, but I could just pick it up and start playing. Something comes out. I just keep a bass next to the bed, and my wife will be in the bathroom, put on her makeup or something. And she'll walk by and she goes, "Oh, that's a cool song. What's that?" I go, "I don't know."
Right.
Because it just hums, and thank God to this digital device right here. I used to carry around a cassette deck and I've just record things and sing into it. So I've got thousands of weird ideas in here that are everything from ideas for writing books to photography to music to, and constantly like chasing this thing in my head. I was doing something the other day and I was like, wow, I should like turn that into a band. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't need to be in another band. But it's the creativity, you know?
Well, that's my favorite thing about you. It's like you had this you're an architect and you build things, and you're a photographer and you're an author and you're a songwriter, and it's like, keep doing it. But I want to know, like, when you started going back in time, and it's like, this is the blueprint for NIKKI SIXX. It's also the blueprint for an alcoholic and a drug addict, because it's like, that's how it happens for us. You know what I mean? I'm also I told you, I'm a heroin addict in recovery, and like fucking like age 7, you try weed. Like, what hit you first, weed and drinking a little bit, or rock and roll?
Well, unfortunately for me, we lived in Mexico for a year. That's not the unfortunate part. That was the great part. But my stepfather, it was the 60s, probably like 64, 65. They were just partying all the time. My mom was partying all the time. I didn't know what that was. It definitely felt different when I came back to Idaho and lived with my grandparents. And we were, you know, out in the open fishing and hunting and stuff. And then I'd be back with my mom and it would be chaos. I didn't really understand that. And so my stepfather got me to try weed when I was like 6 or 7. I didn't even, you know, I don't try to make it into one of those war stories, because I don't really remember anything other than I just remember I felt weird. And, you know, you're a kid, right? Weird is everything. That person makes me feel weird. Stay away from them. That guy made me feel weird too. You know, he was just, he smacked me around and shit. And probably is, you know, in a lot of ways responsible for me having this mindset. You know, you can't put your hands on me.
Right.
And you can't verbally assault me. And I'll stand my ground for what I believe in musically, even if the newest, biggest band in the world is all wearing spacesuits. I always get some executive going, Nikki, don't you think you Mötley Crüe guys should wear spacesuits now? And I'm always going to be the guy that stands my ground for that, even if it's to a fault. And that could have come from some of those messaging people that were around in my early years. And the other thing about this book is I realized that my childhood just didn't always suck. I had some really great times. And if it wasn't for all of it, we wouldn't probably be doing an interview right now. It would just be another creative guy that, you know, might work at Walmart or something. And I'd go home and doodle and do photography, or wherever I work. Maybe I would, you know, end up, you know, putting myself through school somehow, even though I didn't have the finances. And would have done something else in my life. But I always believe I would be blue collar, whatever it is. I'm 100% a blue collar type person. So that's why sometimes fame and money and stuff like that, it feels a little like, wow, I always feel guilty. A house in Los Angeles, people would come over, and it had this huge entranceway. And people would come in, they go, whoa. And I go, oh, yeah, it's okay, man, I'm sorry. They're like, what do you mean? You're sorry.
You have to apologize for your success. And maybe that's another reason why you did all the shit you did, why you went as far as you went, because you were uncomfortable being this, you know, eventually you had a #1 record, so you could have been considered as a pop star. I know that's sacrilege for me to say it to you, but like, you were fucking top of the charts on MTV, the whole thing. And it's like, meanwhile, in your heart, you're this poor kid from Idaho who hunted and fished, and your dad was gone and your mother was gone.
Yeah.
It's like, but I mean, no matter what happened with you, I personally believe you probably would have been in a similar spot, because you had a vision, and the vision was everything. Like, one of my favorite stories in the book, I never had this kind of thing happen, where you felt bullied and you were like, fuck that. And you grabbed a bunch of rocks, put them in your lunchbox, and fucking knocked the kid out. Like, how old were you at that point?
Oh God, I was so young. And that was an important part for me, because I realized that because I was different, that these Mexican kids, older, were just messing with me all the time. And I was like the new kid in school. And I just remember going, I don't care how big you are, that ain't going to happen. And that would not be unlike when we got into a legal lawsuit with Elektra Records and took the masters away from them. You know, the big bad 1,000-pound gorilla. I'm going to put rocks in my lunchbox and I'm going to hit you over the head. And I've been able to calm that in me a little bit. You know, I've been able to think about it a little bit. But it's important to stand up for yourself in a relationship. You know, I think it's important for women to stand up for themselves. I think it's important for people to be able to voice their opinions, whether I believe in it or not. And I got a lot of that from, you know, being young and traveling around. And it was really interesting. You know, when you stand up for yourself, people don't like it, but then all of a sudden people are like admire it at the same time.
They learn to respect you. Now, your mom was very wild. And one of the things, I had read the Heroin Diaries years ago, and I'm reading the first 21, and you're talking about your mother's boyfriend, Richard. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I had to reread it like twice to really understand that your mother was dating Richard Pryor. Like,
yeah.
It's like you really rubbed up against fame before you became famous. Do you think that informed your whole career in a way?
I never knew anything about Richard other than he was just really fun,
he was cool,
nice to me, and hung out with me. And that's my memories of Richard. It wasn't until later in life that I was able to go, oh, Richard Pryor, you know, and in the 70s and, you know, in part of the 80s, Richard was like the guy. And I would kind of fondly see him come on TV on an interview, read something about him, and I'd be like, wow, that was just this guy that would come over, was dating my mom, and just treated me really, really good. Really good. And so, you know, it's also like important for me, like when I was like looking through my past, it's easy to go, oh, the guy in the dirt and the Heroin Diaries, and start to paint me into I had it rough and I'm a badass. And the truth is, I'm not really a badass. I had it rough and I didn't have it rough. You know, I had Bernie who would give me weed and smack me around. And then I had Richard who was just kind. And I think that all these people form who you are. All these experiences form who you are. So back to the top of we were talking, it's why I'm really happy where I'm at right now. I've had all these cool life experiences. And I get to get back together with my band, and you know how important being in a band is to me. And I get to go tour, and it's going to be fun. I mean, we're going to be outside. There's going to be, I don't know how many people in each city, 50 to 80,000 people, singing these songs that came from somewhere that when I was listening to the AM radio in Jerome, Idaho, you know, and you stand up on stage, you're like, wow. And sometimes I go, wow, why me? You know, I don't know.
Well, it's ridiculous. You're going to tour with Def Leppard and Poison and Joan Jett. And in the book, you say you're not that thrilled about touring with Poison, but Def Leppard and Joan Jett you feel good about, which I think is funny. You know, I think that's fair enough.
It's a great night for people. That's the most important thing is if you literally look at all the bands and count their hits, and multiply it by 5. I mean, that's how many hours you're going to have of every single song or almost every single song. You know, we try to do a couple of deep tracks here and there. You know, we notice when we play Girls, Girls, Girls versus we play Piece of Your Action, it's you that's going to go, oh my God, they're playing Piece of Your Action. And the person next to you may be like, I don't know, I only heard their greatest hits. So it's important to play some of those older songs too. But in general, it's a greatest hits show.
It'll be amazing. Now, when I read the first 21, I almost didn't feel like ridiculous heroin addict NIKKI is going to come out of this. What do you think, like, the first glimpse of you as like an alcoholic and an addict really kind of came into your mind that was a possible path?
Oh, I associate it with, when I go back in time, this compulsive, addictive drive. And whether it was me doing odd jobs, mowing lawns, whatever, working in restaurants, dishwashing, I was obsessed with the idea of the destination or the goal. You know, what's the goal? And once you win enough, like score enough points, and beat enough teams to go to the Super Bowl. So for me, I was obsessed with the idea of getting a bicycle so I could ride here to do work on the farm, to do this, to make money, to buy a guitar, to get on a bus, to go to Los Angeles, to learn how to write and play and form the most dangerous band in the world. Like, that's all. I could go all the way back and go, I was obsessed.
And
And
obsession, right?
That's addictive behavior.
Exactly. Obsession and compulsion, if it's positive or negative, is totally what drives us. When I had lost my family, I became obsessed with getting them back. And I actually started going to AA just to deal with the obsession of not having my family, to have an obsession be lifted through a spiritual practice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do.
One of my favorite stories in this first 21 is when you start selling mescaline and you add chocolate to it. Can you please tell that story for the Dopey Nation? Because they're going to love that.
I am a marketing genius.
You are, for sure.
Well, it wasn't like I was, this is my way of having a cool product, so to speak, but
we're going to add chocolate to mescaline. That's going to be the wave of the future.
You mixed it together and put it in these little capsules, and then you sold it as chocolate mescaline to other kids your age. I mean, it just sounds like a good time to me. Give me some chocolate mescaline. It's not like LSD, but so stupid, right? So stupid.
I love it. And your mother you describe as this very beautiful hippie. And when Mötley Crüe kind of came in, I got the sense that like there was nothing worse than hippies or new wave people. Do you think kind of like, did you hate hippies going in because like you were just pissed? Like, what's your relationship to hippie culture? I want to hear about that.
I'm not too ingrained in it. I respect it for a lot of reasons. It was an important time in the 60s, the Vietnam War, and what was going on politically, and people to grow their hair and stand up for themselves, have a different snapshot of what they want their life to look like. They don't want to be Ozzy and Harriet. I really appreciate that. Some really great music came out of that, obviously. And some of that music that had some of that heartbeat then linked over to the 70s, which is my favorite era of any era. But I have a lot of respect for that. But it was never really a big influence to me. There's not really any 60s bands I can think of that I listen to and go, I want to really emulate that, or I want to play bass like that. It was more like the late 60s and then the 70s where it was go time for me.
That muscly rock and roll bass. Absolutely. The heavy stuff. When was the first time you did coke?
God, I can't remember. I think it was probably at the Starwood backstage where David Forrest worked, and there was always like a lot of celebrities back there. And I was kind of me and Lizzie, who was a guitar player in London, and Dane Rage, who was the drummer. We were like, the three of us were just always tied together. And I remember always being told, take some rum and coke back to them. John Holmes is back there, Todd Rundgren's back there, so-and-so's back there. And I was just some kid with a weird haircut that they just, needed me to go do stuff. I was a janitor during the day there with Lizzie and Dane. I think at some point right around then that I got a little taste of that.
And you were like, wow, did it set off rockets in your head like when you did coke, or did it not?
Not really. Alcohol for me was my favorite because, we just drink and get rowdy and do stupid shit. Coke, for some reason, you could go longer with Coke drinking, which of course is the downfall. So, you give it an alcoholic cocaine, they're just going to drink twice as much for twice as many days in a row.
So alcohol was the first love. And then when was the first time you tried heroin?
Oh, God. Heroin. I think like living in an apartment off of Coldwater Canyon. There were some people in other bands, and somebody came around from San Diego and said, "Hey, I got some it was some Persian heroin." And I just thought, wow, Keith Richards, like Miles Davis, like, what do they know that I don't know? You know, it's like, so yeah, I tried it, and I remember going, "This is the worst experience ever." Like, threw up all over the place and laid there on my back, hyperventilating. And, you know, leave it to an addict. They're like, "That was fun. Let's do it again," until you're strung out and almost and die. You know, it's just crazy. I like to be part of, I'm not your mom. I'm not your fucking dad. I'm just here to tell you and show you what happened with me. I didn't take care of shit, so shit caught up. And I'm going to show you through my writing and interviews and stuff at times. I don't want to be known as this is just my only job. But I'm going to show you what happens when you take it too far. And then you get to make your own decision. You know, I'm not here to ride anybody. I'm never on social media putting people down with addiction or something. It's a struggle. It's hard. And me and you are really lucky. We got out. So all I try to do is just share my story. And, you know, it's funny. You know, sometimes I'll see stuff. I don't read a lot of comments or stuff. Half the time I don't even know my passwords to get on stuff. So even though I am kind of I am a little bit of an addict with Instagram because I love photography so much. So I'll like
your shit is
constantly
great.
Posting photos and stuff. Maybe it's an overshare. Who knows? Maybe it's something I got to work on. But you know, I see every now and then, when's this guy going to stop talking about heroin? When's this guy going to stop? I love this one, cashing in on heroin. Like, okay, I am trying to spread the message of what it looks like and what it could look like for you and what it did look like for me. That's it. Peace out. Make your own decisions. So I'll probably always have, you know, a little bit of chatter about it. And you know, probably be fucking 80 years old, dude. And someone's going to ask me about it. And maybe some 20-year-old reads this weird old pirate interview and goes, "Wow, I was going to try drugs and that made me not do it."
Well, our audience is like a bunch of drug addicts. Some are in recovery. Most are in recovery at this point. Some are on the fence and some aren't. Yeah. And like, you don't have to worry about like telling them the wrong thing or anything. Cause I mean, like they're in the road that we're in. And I think when I've read you talk about the warmth that hit you with dope and just you talking about Keith Richards and Miles Davis. And I know what a reader you are and how much you appreciate art. I know for myself, like when I first started doing dope, I was like, I finally my brain isn't bothering me anymore. Like my brain isn't giving me like, you're not good enough. Like you're worrying about this, you're worrying about that. All of a sudden I feel nothing good. And like, finally I don't have to fret. Like I'm as cool as I could imagine being because I don't have to worry about anything. And I didn't have anything when I got addicted. I had a little job and like, I was like, I'm just going to do this. I you know, the Lou Reed song, like Heroin, where he says, "I've made a decision." And I remember when I made the decision, like, when did you turn the corner on trying it to being like, I can handle this, or thinking that you could?
This is the crazy part about my story is I never even thought about controlling it or anything. It wasn't until I got clean and sober that I was able to look at anything and go, I can't do just one. I just can't, which was freeing for me because, you know, once you're really strung out, in my case, when I was really strung out on dope, then comes this like this wrestling match with your addiction. I remember buying a large chunk of heroin and breaking it down with my dealer from a gram to this much to this much and it was like, in 28 days you will be clean and sober with this process.
The impossible wean.
Day one, like I fucking slammed the dope. I'm like, okay. And then in the evening, I'm like, I got the itch. You know, maybe I'll just chip a little out of that. And you know, it was all gone in a week, and I got even more strung out. I can't do anything once. I don't think I can ever drink. I know I can't ever drink. I it's just the way it is, and it I'm sure some of your listeners can relate to this. I apply my addictive behavior to my family, how much I love them, obsessed with my family, with music, with photography. Something that's been important in my life is books. And, now we're on the 4th New York Times bestseller. And so now I have some people talking to me about, what's the next steps for that. Me and my wife are working on a children's book, and
Awesome.
I just formed a production company and signed a deal with a huge director. We're starting developing an animation for children, episodic, that is based around music. So each show, based on the age group that we're working on, which is 6 to 9, will have an original song. So it might be a co-write, it might be an original for me, it might be something that we license, but it's all music driven. And I just noticed through Ruby, my 2.5-year-old, that when we're watching any children programming and music comes on, she gets going, she starts dancing, and I was like, this is what happened to me when I heard music. I started going like, what's that in the background? What is that on my grandmother's radio? What is that? I mean, I remember hearing Petulia Clark driving around Los Angeles with my mom, hearing Petulia Clark's song Downtown, which was about downtown Los Angeles. And the bells were ringing, dude. It was like, jing, 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 jing. And I was writing stuff down. And, I never set out to be a songwriter. I just trying to document the crazy in my brain. And you're right, the heroin and other things quieted the monster. So I want that monster to scream, but I just want to point him in the right direction.
Totally. And it's the fire. You know what I mean? You have the fire to do anything you want. I put all that shit into this stupid podcast. Like, I started it with a buddy of mine when I got right out of rehab. He wound up dying from a fentanyl overdose 2.5 years into it. And then it really kind of blew up because everybody loved him so much that the community came together. And now my dream is to like keep addicts company by having a laugh at the dumbest shit we ever did because we can relate. And of course it's not like, oh, heroin's amazing, I love tripping. It's not. It's about, we've been through this, and now how can we have sober lives that are informed by these ridiculous things that we did? You know what I mean? Because that's the cosmic poetry of the whole thing. I mean, you died twice, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the only one. A lot of your listeners are like, yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. That's how far it'll take you. And of course, you told me about your friend and your partner. He passed over that line that some of us get to come back from. And I'm glad you kept on this because I think it's important to keep talking about this stuff. And also I like the humor in it. When you go to a good AA meeting, here's some old timers. You got a lot of chuckles going on. Yeah, I just think it's an amazing program. And I think having a podcast that gets the community to listen, talk, and share their experiences. You're probably reaching people in all these different countries that you could never reach. If you got an AA meeting down on the corner, you can get your local area, people, neighborhood, maybe you got a sponsor there, whatever, some of your friends. But in your situation or in my situation, we're able to talk about this and realize that part of the responsibility is to just share the truth. And like I said, I'm not your mom and dad. This is just what happened to me. And if you can relate to that, then maybe it'll like stop them from going over that line, or their marriage blowing up, or them crashing their car and rolling it and killing a family that's on their way back from getting pizza. We could go on and on with this stuff that happens.
Totally.
So you're doing a good thing there, dude.
The currency of Dopey is the horrible Dopey story. So you have this book is just every story is like I could just turn to the page and pick one. Could you tell in your mind what do you think the worst fucked up story you could tell very quickly and not to ruin your life here? Like a good one for the Dopey Nation.
You mean in the drug culture?
I mean, yeah, some kind of fucking story. Yes, please.
I pride myself on trying to be a really good band leader. I didn't take that role. I think it's just the nature of our personalities and a lot of responsibility the band trusts me to take care of. But we're very much a band. The band is so important to me. So anything I do, it is for the band, about the band. We'll go beyond the call of duty for the guys in the band. So something that still hurts my heart is that when I was strung out, I came to rehearsal and showed the band a song. And, I was like, here, Vince, like kind of lyrics halfway done. Here's kind of the riff, Mick. What would you do with it? I got this chorus here. Start doing it. If they like it, we're going to finish it. If they don't like it, then, you move on. I can't tell you how many songs just died on the chopping block right then. And everybody seemed really stoked and excited. I remember I went home, came to rehearsal the next day, and I showed the band the same song. It was like Groundhog Day because I was so fucked up. And I remember Tommy saying, I had track marks on the top of my hand because a lot of my veins had collapsed. And I just feel so bad that I put my band through that. And that was before, I had a family, and I'm sure, it was painful for my family back in Idaho, but they didn't know the extent. So my family in Los Angeles, California, I feel bad that I put them through that. And it makes me feel bad because I have a lot of pride in raising the standard for myself and for our band.
I hear you. What's it like when you record the audiobook for the Heroin Diaries and you're reading all of these really crazy stories, stone cold sober, and you're in the worst moments of your life, basically? Like, what's the experience as a sober person?
I feel gratitude when I'm reading, and I also would have to. I would say if it was present day Nikki, I'd be like, I was thinking about blah blah blah, and in 1987. This happened, and very lucid and clear. And so I'd be reading it like that, like we're talking. And then it would be like June 27th. And so I would have to reset. And there were parts where I said, let's just do the chapter reads. And then I'd go back and fill that back in again. But every time I got into one, it wasn't like I would feel massive amounts of shame or embarrassment because I made the decision to publicize this and I saw that it was helping people. So I felt gratitude. I was like, oh my God, I survived that. I survived myself. I survived my thought processes about my family. Like, wow, look at this that I'm getting to do. So it wasn't so gruesome, but I would have to change the tone of my voice a little bit. Is that interesting?
I read it and I listened to it. I actually finished reading it again this morning and I fucking cried. The end of the book is so like crazy because you go to hell and back like 1,000 times in this book, and then at the end of the book you're like turning a corner, and then you give us the kind of crib notes on the next 10 years of your life, and it's like a lot. It's like the end of a movie and you say this guy did this guy did this guy did this after you've been through this crazy experience. And it's like, I was just thinking, like, you didn't write a book about the process of getting sober. Like, you didn't write a book about, like, what happens after this. And, like, Are you ever thinking about doing that, like the actual nitty gritty of how you got from here to 21 years?
I haven't really thought about that. I thought it was important to show that you at your worst, and then what you can do when you make decisions, like in recovery. So I've enjoyed that part. You know, no matter where I go in the world, somebody has that book.
Yeah.
And I've had people with tears in their eyes, and I see it in the front row, and people saying thank you. And it just really does my heart good. And I raised over $1 million in sales to give to Covenant House to create a music program for their down in Los Angeles, California. And a lot of these kids, they fall through the cracks in the foster care system. So when they turn 18 years old, the foster parents are like, look, the government's no longer paying us, and it's time that you get off. I'm not saying all foster parents are evil, but a lot of kids fall through the crack, and they couch surf, and they try to get by, and they do whatever they have to do to make money, but they fall through the cracks. They end up on the streets. They end up in gangs and selling drugs and prostitution. And now, especially in the last 5 years, a lot of talk about human trafficking and these kids being picked up and taken to other countries. So by building a music program, and then you pull them off the street, and they get them restarted with an education and psychology and recovery, and then they can go and learn how to program beats for hip hop, or they can learn how to play guitar like Keith Urban, or they can, whatever it is they want to do, and it gives them something to look forward to. And I felt like, for me, when I got sober, I was like, oh my God, look, I have a band. Like, I have a band. I have something to look forward to, because you also have life. You have responsibility and mortgages and car payments, and you're a father, and all the shit that happens in life that we work so hard for can also be a lot of work. And so for me, I have Mötley Crüe or 6 a.m. or stuff that I do creative to look forward to. And I wanted these kids to have that. But that was another thing about the book is, I said, if I can help one person. I never went into this like New York Times bestseller, and I'm going to make a bunch of money. I've made really good money. I've been very safe with my money, and it grows for me because I want to not ever have to do anything creatively, musically, that I would have to do for money. So anything I'm doing, you'll go, Nikki's doing that because he loves it. Even if I'm getting paid really good. And it's okay to get paid really good. But this book was not about getting paid really good. This book was about reaching one person at a time, raising as much money as possible. $1 million is a lot of money, especially when every single company that I called, guitar companies, amp companies, software companies, they were just donating. So this money sits there, and they're able to bring in music teachers and help these kids for years, and it makes me feel really good for these kids. And it's called Running Wild in the Night. It's not the NIKKI SIXX Music Foundation. These kids don't even maybe know who NIKKI SIXX is. I don't care. I'm
worried.
I just like to know that I maybe helped somebody along the way.
You helped 1 million people. More than that, probably. And the most important thing about these books are that they're great books. You know what I mean? Like, at the core of the books, they're great books, and your music is great music. One thing you said that's kind of freaking me out, it's like, you're like, maybe some kids will learn how to make hip-hop beats. Maybe some dude will learn how to play guitar like Keith Urban. Do you have no faith in rock and roll? Is rock and roll... Do you think rock and roll is shot?
Oh, I believe right now there's a lot of kids coming up or digging down on that Jimmy Page riff, and throwing some Joe Perry right in our face, and singers are out there and realizing that they don't need to sing here. They can have highs and lows and melodies and harmonies, and hopefully people are really paying attention to lyrics, because I think When you listen to a band and you love the band, it's a lot of fun, that's great. But when you listen to a band and that lyric connects with you, and I'm not saying every single Mötley Crüe or 6am lyric will connect with people. Sometimes it's a song like Girls, Girls, Girls that was written for, hey, it's about girls, girls, girls. Like, why not? Let's have fun. Like, we're going to these strip clubs all the time in the 80s. But if you listen to the lyrics, they're really dark, grungy, truthful underbelly, which is what's happening underneath that strip club world. Those girls trying to claw themselves to the top and get out of whatever situation they're in. It's a very dark world. So, but I don't want to be like, hey, look at this depressing subject. It's girls. So as a lyricist, I can dive down deep and have Vince really nail it and tell that story. And then on the top of it, we're able to sort of, keep it a little lighter.
Well, I think that's one of your incredible talents, is your ability to like do many, many different things within one song, like go gothic, be funny, be topical, have an interesting rhyme scheme, and then make sure each part hits musically. I think that's like a classic NIKKI SIXX-ism in general. Like you did it all at the same time, which is why it appealed to so many different people.
Yeah. What I was going to say on the rhyme scheme thing. I write kind of stream of consciousness a lot. So I will have an idea and I just start blurting it out. I actually do it on my voice message too, but sometimes I'm listening to my voice and it fucks me up. So I just start writing. I'll write pages of stuff and I'll go, that chunk, that's some teeth. There's some meat on that. And then you apply it to the music. And a lot of times, the rhyme scheme they're not hard rhyme schemes. It's not like, you're going to get some ink and put it in the sink. I don't use the rhyming dictionary, but Vince has this great ability to kind of tonally bend words to fit a rhyme almost. And
also his accent, his Southern California-ism kind of does something where it serpentines the words in an interesting way. And I think that's something that the two of you put together in a really cool way that's unexpected. And that's another reason why Mötley Crüe did as well as it did, because these four disparate people created this one unified sound. And I think that's for sure. One more question, because I know that we're going to run out of time, and I want to ask you this. When you're in like the most, potentially Mötley Crüe was the most debaucherous band in the history of rock and roll. You're right there. Like who could possibly be more debaucherous on the scale? And I'm being honest. Like maybe Led Zeppelin, but they didn't have the same sort of ridiculous outreach. Like MTV wasn't around. You know what I'm saying? So who could have been as debaucherous as Mötley Crüe?
The thing about my band is they're kind of they're fearless. All of them. Like Mick just say, I don't give a fuck. Do whatever he wants to do. And Vince is like a little fireball rebel, and Tommy just says how he feels it, whether it's right or wrong. So it was not like hard to imagine us just telling it how it is during interviews, and eventually, which turned into a book, which turned into a movie that 100 million people saw, which launched a stadium tour. It's just telling it how it is. I just don't think we pulled our punches, and I know a lot of other bands. It's not my job to disclose who they are, but done just as much crazy ass shit as us, but they just don't talk about it.
Right.
They don't talk about it because they're smarter than us.
Right. I get that. Now, what was it like when you were the first person to get sober within that framework? How difficult was that?
It all happened at different times. Vince, after the car accident, needed to be sober. Was part of his whole thing.
The court settlement, whatever.
Talk about it. It was such a horrible time for everybody involved. So Vince was dealing with that, and I was dealing with my addiction, and Tommy was probably just partying, and Mick was doing his thing. And then next up, I can't remember if it was Tommy or me, but we were all really heading on the sober train. And then I think Vince had kind of gone off the wagon, but it was right. It was around 88 that we kind of all got together and we're all going in the same direction. And when I went to rehab, the band came and visited me. And when Tommy went to rehab, we all flew out to Arizona and were there and part of his family group. And the same with Vince. We know the language. We understand it, you know. So, you know, we were able to look at what we did and what it was starting to do to us and make changes. Not that everybody in the band is sober. You know, I can't speak for the other guys, but there are other sober band members. And it's cool to have that in common. It's definitely cool to have that history in common. I think it's hit me more in the last like few months. I think since we turned 40 years old, because I think I remember when Stones turned 40 and I was like, fucking hell, 40 years in a band? Jesus, these guys are gods. Like, you know, how do they survive the Rolling Stones? And there we are at 40 years. Oh my God, how did these guys survive themselves? And it's like you're looking at your family and going, I can't believe that we're still together through hell. And there's so much to celebrate and so much bad that we've been through and how we've been able to or not support each other as brothers. And remember, everybody's, you know, has children, married, some have grandchildren, and live all over the country. Two guys live in Nashville. I live in Wyoming. Tommy's down in Los Angeles. So when you think about Mötley Crüe, it's like, wow, we're all over the place and our ages and but it's like, look at this history that we have. And then I'm really excited to go out and play live.
But
It's
isn't
been a
that
while.
like,
It's been a minute. You know, it's been a minute. I was this morning, it was just my daughter. I put something on for my daughter and lit the fireplace. It was like 7:30 in the morning. I had a cup of coffee and I grabbed one of my basses and I was just, you know, doing those little noodle things that us musicians do. I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing, but it just feels good. And then all of a sudden, I was like, and I was like, oh, whoa. And by the end of a couple rounds of that, my hand was burning because I haven't played that song in a while.
right?
Like,
And you don't have the
fastest
stamina,
song we
right?
have. That and Livewire are pretty fast. So you got to build stamina up for that. So now I'm in the gym. I have a food delivery service called Fresh and Lean. They deliver whatever I'm looking for. I'm doing a kind of a high protein thing right now, high cardio, starting the practice, starting to put the stage clothes together, starting to develop what the show is going to look like. What are we going to do that's different than Def Leppard? What's Def Leppard going to do that's different than us for the fans? And looking at all of that stuff. And it's exciting. And you know, a guy in another band texted me this morning and he said, man, this aging shit isn't easy. And he's like 20 years younger than me. I was like, give me a break, you know.
Who was it?
I'm not
Tell
gonna
us.
tell you, but
Come on.
He said confidentially in his text, confidentially. So
Was it Justin Timberlake?
You know, as you get older, it is harder. And as you're sober longer, you need to be aware that motherfucking monster is not dead. That thing might be chained up in the basement. Just open the cage. Just open the cage that's on the floor. Let him out. Leave him on the chain. Just let him out. See how that works out for you. And
Just
all
don't
of a sudden,
feed him.
My wife leaves me. I lose my daughter. My other kids are like, Dad, you've taught us this and you're doing the opposite. My band can't tour. My finances crumble. I mean, all my businesses that I have, everything that I've ever done, just because of that fucking monster. Fuck that monster. That thing I'm going to double padlock him up and whatever I have to do to keep him locked down, because I know he'll never die. I know I could be 80 years old and go, well, babe, I did it. Took care of everybody. all the managers, the agents, everybody's happy. You know, sold my record company, did this, did that, blah, 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 blah. We've moved to Fiji. Life is great. Give me a martini and a line of cocaine. I'll be dead in fucking 45 days. I know it. I know it. So, like, what are you going to do with that? What are we going to do with this obsessive compulsive behavior? We're going to apply it to doing what you're doing. We're going to apply it to maybe writing books. We're going to apply it to people going to meetings and sharing their story with each other. And I think I kind of feel like, don't you sometimes just feel a little bit blessed that you're an addict? Like you see things a little clearer?
Yes. Yes, because I know all of the things I fucked up, and I know that you can't give that monster a scrap of anything, because it's like gremlins. You give them one thing and it's over. You have to starve them. But I think what you just said is the whole thing. I don't think Mötley Crüe would still be going if you didn't persevere, and you wouldn't have any recovery if you didn't persevere. It's all about this obsession to do the next right thing as opposed to whatever fed the monster before. Now, before you go, I have a weird little quiz. We do a quiz, really quick quiz, really quick.
I can do a quiz, you know.
Okay. We're going to start with things you don't care about. Okay. Beatles versus Stones.
It was always Stones.
I figured. Okay. How about John versus Paul?
Wings? Can I say Wings?
How could you like really Wings more than the Beatles? Could you explain that?
I like Wings more than the Beatles too.
I don't. You do. How do you like Wings more than the Beatles? Tell me. Explain.
What are you talking about? Have you ever listened to band? Oh, yeah, we're done here.
No, we're not. So you like Paul more than John?
You know, I never really knew that much about the band. Appreciated the band. Was like, wow, how do you do that in 8 years, in and out, like a flame ball? But I kind of always felt it was John's band until this new documentary that was out. And I was like, Paul McCartney's a motherfucker. He's just sitting there. Maybe he got an idea. He's just banging on this thing. And you're going, he's writing one of the biggest songs in the world right now. And the rest of the band's like smoking cigarettes and bringing those parts around. And they're like, okay, let's try it. I saw that over and over with him. That was pretty impressive, man.
Crazy movie, right? Okay.
Wings.
Huh? So you give Wings.
Swings.
Oh, yeah, he swings. Everything he touches swings. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin.
Aerosmith for me. They're my my number one band.
Aerosmith, and you're friendly with Steven and Joe, right?
Oh yeah, I'm friendly with the whole band for sure. I love those guys. I remember something. I don't freaking know what it was. Tom Hamilton, and I talked about Tom, and he reached out to me and he's like, "Man, thank you for like talking about my bass playing and how much you felt was an important part." And I was like, "Can you just like pinch me because they are my band. Like they're the band. Like I can put on their first record and just go right back in time." I mean, I just remember sitting in this basement, and trying to learn that on bass,
right?
And the way they sounded and looked and presented themselves, they were this bigger, badder New York Dolls, sexier, tougher, meaner Stones,
swinging, funky as hell,
punk as hell, and bluesy. They're my band. But I love Zeppelin, but they're my band.
When Steven Tyler here, like in the middle of it, I remember in the Heroin Diaries, Steven Tyler's like, if I find out you're fucking using, I'm going to kill you. Like, was he a big influence on you in terms of that?
He went out of his way to call me back on the answering machine days. And I would always have messages from him singing. Nikki, just singing and making up, putting my last name in rhyme schemes. And I was like, how am I not going to listen? How can I not hear this? This is from God saying, Nikki, if you won't fucking listen to anybody else, will you at least listen to your heroes? Yeah, addiction's a bitch, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what it made me think of also? In in the big book, and it talks about like not being the director, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that when you are the director? You're the leader. Like, how much in recovery was that a thing for you?
It's a really good question. You know, you have to say, am I this guy? I got the hat on and I have this list of responsibilities. Oh, I hit a wall. Let me take the hat off and be open-minded. Oh, that guy sitting over there in the corner has a better idea than I do, and he's just like an assistant. I got no ego with that. You know, ego's not your amigo, man. It will take, yeah. So I've learned how to be responsible and then be receptive. Be responsible and be receptive, which can be applied like to a lot of things, like my marriage. You know, you gotta be receptive. You know, men and women are wired really differently. If you continue to think that they should be wired like you're just going to be hitting your head against the brick wall, and vice versa. So I learned this stuff through sobriety. Was
humility hard to come by?
No, because
okay.
I'm a fucking farm kid.
Right.
That's
okay, back to the quiz.
Star, I'm just a fucking guy that lives on a mountain in Wyoming.
With a great leather jacket, though. Here we go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Much.
Kiss or Alice Cooper?
Oh, Alice, man. Those songs.
Right.
I mean, all of it. Unbelievable. Lyrically, visually, felt more like it crawled out of a gutter.
And he's a
huge Kiss fans. And I loved Kiss musically up to a certain point. I prefer them as songwriters than I do as performers, but I totally get it. I mean, I toured with them a lot. We've done a lot of shows. I get it. But it would be Alice Cooper.
And Alice
opened for us. I was on the side of the stage listening to the bass line, listening to that fill, listening to how he delivered that melody line, you know, on I'm 18. So for me, that was a big one. But Kiss's songwriting had some really great riffs and great songs.
And Alice is a monster in recovery also, like recovery monster. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, here's one that's going to be
a lot about it. He doesn't talk a lot about it in a big way, but he lets it be known where he was at and the decisions he made, and I'm grateful for that. We've talked about it.
I can imagine. This one's going to be harder, okay? New York Dolls or the Ramones?
Well, I love the way that the doll, let's call it their presentation, you know? It was just like, what the fuck? Especially being in Idaho. And they have like songs like Personality Crisis. I mean, that's a great written song right there. Chatterbox. At one point we were talking about cover songs. I think around the time we did Anarchy. That was one of the songs we talked about. Thought Vince could just really spit that one out. But the Ramones, it was more consistent songwriting wise.
Yes.
Like you put on a Ramones album from top to bottom, it was like those songs are like a bullet in the face. The Dolls were kind of hodgepodge, which was kind of the Dolls type thing. You know, they only were here for a second. I think they had a big influence on a lot of people. I don't know how much of a musical influence they had, though. The Ramones definitely had a musical influence.
Yeah. I'm like, I know you're a crazy Johnny Thunders fan. I prefer hearing Johnny Thunders sing the songs than David Johansen. I like his voice better personally, but I think I'm crazy for that.
No, he had a cool vibe.
All right,
yeah,
that's
could have used recovery, right? There's a guy.
Say it again.
There's a guy that could have used recovery.
Oh man, that's a fucking. Did you ever see the documentary about him? It's fucking just so sad. It's like I don't know. I'll Google it. I'll send it to your guy, but it's like it's sad, and a lot of it is just on VHS. You should check it out. But it's because it's all the music. It's all those solo performances where he's singing like Eve of Destruction and Lonely Planet Boy and all that stuff, and it gets you right in the heart. All All right. I mean, like Sid Vicious or Johnny Thunders. We'll leave it at that.
Well, they both I think Sid lit the world up on fire in a way, because it was this whole new thing with punk rock. And now we understand that, he could barely play, and he was a bit lost, and he was always fucked up. And I think that carving shit into his body and the look and the whole thing. I mean, you look back on it and you're like, I feel so bad for that guy. But at the moment of impact, it was like, wow, man, that band, to me, it was Johnny and him was like, what the fuck is this, Fireball? And I always felt like that's what I wanted out of Mötley Crüe. Like, we did our first album, was I wanted people to go, what is this? And you can go back and go, I can hear the Dolls, I can hear the Pistols, I can hear Aerosmith, I can hear Black Sabbath, I can hear Ian Hunter's lyrics, So all this stuff, and it's like ground zero, bam. I love that. I love listening to bands' first record because they had nothing to lose. I would venture to say that nowadays it's not quite as much like going to sign a band, put them in the recording studio and see how it does. And record companies would support bands for, it would usually be through their third album, right? It was a lot of these bands that we love, they broke on their third record. Now you got about 6 weeks. And if you don't fit the format, when I grew up, if you fit the format, you were fucked. You got to not fit the format to stand out, to make the kid go, what's that?
Right.
Now, if you're what's that? It's usually, well, we can't play you.
It's also like then if you got into a commercial, you were like, this dude's a sellout. You have no fucking value. And now they almost have to be in a commercial to make it as a band because they're not selling records. It's a sad time, I think, for the music industry in a lot of ways.
We need to evolve with it, and I think that as far as making money, we don't have that support system of album sales that we had through almost all of our career. So bands got to be resourceful, and the social media is a big part of it. What I don't like is where the media is at right now. They love to just cherry pick things and turn it into clickbait. But at the same time, I was telling my wife the other day, if that same thing didn't keep popping up, that negative thing about that band, that negative thing about that actor, maybe I would never even hear about them.
Totally.
So in a weird way, it's like bullshit is almost your marketing platform.
Right. It's like anything to sell papers kind of thing. Like if it's drawing you in, then it's kind of good for the artist, even though it feels bad for the art. Yeah. Now, do you think your number one junkie hero coming up, and who's your number one sober hero now? How's that for a final question?
Let me see. Your sober hero. I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, I think that when I was younger, we just thought you could just roll out of bed and be Keith Richards. It's like Keith Richards popped out playing Brown Sugar out of his mom's vagina, smoking a cigarette. Followed him quickly in the afterbirth was a bottle of Jack Daniels. Some guys just made it look so cool, and was able to get through that. I'm not one of those guys. It was like, oh my God, there is a brick wall. Get me a Ferrari. I'm going 200 miles an hour. I'm going to crash into the brick wall. Everybody's like, why couldn't you just drive the speed limit, Nikki?
Right. In the book, you say, you're like, I'm going to call Keith Richards and see if he ever wants to write some songs. Like, did you have a connection with Keith like that, where maybe you could have written songs with him? Or is that just a total junkie, great pipe dream?
Just fantasy land, talking about what you could do if you wanted to do it. I remember when we opened for the Stones, that the band came in just to say hi, or excuse me, we went to say hi to them.
Right.
Through barriers and barriers of people with guns and security, and went back in the dressing room, and there was like a little drum kit. There was some guy back there just like a jazz shuffle thing. And there was some guy with a saxophone, and Keith had like a little amp, and he was like, and we went in, and he asked me if I had, at the time I smoked, asked me if I had a cigarette or if I had a light. And so I lit his cigarette and lit mine, and he leaned on my shoulder and was like, chattering on about something and playing his guitar. It's like, this is everything I ever wanted. It's everything I ever wanted. Like, he's the real deal. He's just in here playing. And Jagger came in and looked at the band and walked up to me and started talking to me about our album, about the Dr. Feelgood album, and about the songs. And then, that was like I knew how he knew, because we knocked the Stones out of the #1 position with Dr. Feelgood. And he's super on top of that shit. So he's like, who are these guys?
Right.
We're the Stones. So, and he heard the record, whatever he thought enough of it to have us open for them. And that was pretty cool. It was intimidating too, to be honest with you. And that was like the second time one time we were, it was during the Dr. Feelgood tour, we went and saw them in Toronto, and they just came rolling in. They're just musicians, right? They're just guys that play guitar and sing. They love the blues, but you see them in person, it's like, there's those guys. So it was fun to watch my band get a little, not starstruck, just a little nervous. Like, what do you say? What do you say when Ronnie Wood's like, hey man, what's going on today? And you're like, nothing.
But that's the same thing that probably you've done to so many people. So it's awesome that it could happen to you. It's perfect. Did you ever read any of those books about the Stones when they have to travel with Keith is traveling with the fake cans of Coca-Cola with the fucking dope and the Coke cans, and then like some car company took over security and they had to like move all the drugs for them? Did you ever read about that stuff?
Was that Up and Down with the Rolling Stones by Tony Sanchez?
Yes.
That was a fucking great book. And now, in retrospect, I'm like, wasn't he like Keith's assistant or something?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, in retrospect, I'm like, how fucked up is that? Like, to write a book about like such personal stuff, but you see things differently as you. And when I was younger, I was like, oh man, give me the dirt. Hey, that's a good name for a song.
And a book and a movie.
And a movie.
Was it hard for you guys to travel with drugs, or was it not that crazy?
I told my wife one time, I have no idea why we didn't get our doors kicked in our hotels at 4 night. I don't understand. You're in fucking Peoria. I mean, it's a little tiny town, and a band that talks about doing drugs in their songs and in their interviews and brags about their lifestyle. And they're at the fucking Motel 6, whatever it is. And no one showed up. No one. Fucking crazy, right?
You dodged a bullet.
We're so lucky.
You live to tell the tale, NIKKI SIXX. I cannot thank you enough for being
time. A different time, for sure. I've told friends before, we talk about the 80s and what people are starting to wrap their head around now, because when the 90s came, it was like, oh, that was the dumb era. But everywhere I went in the world, people were celebrating. The economy was up. Cocaine was a social drug. Guys and girls were just doing what they want to do. It was like more like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And
it was fun.
Was participating in it. Everybody was participating in it. And then the 90s came, and they were like, that was bad. And I'm like, you guys are boring. But, it was an important time as well, too.
Wow.
Listen. New bands coming up that got some guitar fucking riffs. That's what I'm looking for. Fuck the drugs and the drinking and the girls, all that shit. That was a different time. But just to be able to put a record on and go, yeah.
Well, you did it. And I have a billion more questions, but you've been so generous, and I really, really appreciate you coming on. I can't thank you enough. Dude, when you're in the New York area, I'm going to find out, and I'm going to come to the show, and we're going to do an interview, and it's just going to be fucking drug stories. Were you prepared for that?
Probably not.
That's fair. That's fair. But thank you for your time, man. It was amazing. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate you, man. So wow, NIKKI SIXX finally on Dopey. I'm pleased. I'm proud as punch. I'm super pleased. That's like he's up there with the dopiest possible guests in the history of the show.
That's a big get.
It took years and years and years. I messaged him hundreds of times. I don't think he ever saw the messages though, because he probably would have thought I was insane.
Right.
And
he wouldn't have done it.
I don't think so.
What were the messages? Like, I'm watching you through your window kind of thing?
No, just my typical messages. Yo, hello, hey, yo,
what are you
yo,
expecting?
yo, hey, hello.
Oh, and then that starts the conversation?
Yeah.
And has that worked for you?
Yes. Dude, how many guests have I had on the show?
Huh.
Sometimes that works.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw Perry Farrell is all of a sudden in the tweets.
Right.
He hasn't slid into the direct message community.
Direct message.
But he has. He's tweeting about Dopey. You know, this is how it's done. It's you take someone who's crazy and annoying and persistent like me, and you just you're like water on a stone, and eventually the stone wears down.
Yes.
That's what the key of persistence
Marin
is.
loves you for that.
Huh?
Marin loves you for that.
He was pleased with my persistence, and I'm a persistent fucker, and NIKKI SIXX just came on Dopey, and I'm very proud of that. Dopey Nation, I hope you enjoyed NIKKI SIXX. Please write an email at dopeypodcast@gmail.com. Fucking, I would have liked it if he got a little bit grimier. You know, if he hit us with the Dopey, as Chris would have liked to say.
That's true.
And I blame myself for that. Well, Howie, you were saying, why do you think he didn't hit us with the Dopey?
I mean, I think
From a non-initiated perspective,
I think
the normie perspective.
based on what happened when you asked him point blank to give you a crazy story and his response, it seemed to me like that was a past life.
Right.
I'm not interested in celebrating it. I almost took it as like he's on the 3rd chapter with the new book of his life, and he's so far removed from that. When this book came out, the diaries, then I could imagine he would say like, all right, that's what we're going to talk about because that's what the book is about. But it's like he's so far removed. His story was almost like, oh, that thing, you know, that was a long time ago.
And I think I said, what's the worst thing you ever did? And he said, disappoint my band.
Right. Which is like, that's what you say when, you know, you've got 20 years of sobriety and you've had a lot of time to reflect. And yeah, that's what you did. You were irresponsible and you let your band down.
Wow.
That's not the craziest story though.
The book is jam-packed with dopey stories. And I feel like if I had read this to him, it would have elicited a response. So I'm going to read this to you.
Please.
And this isn't the dopiest part, but there's just something about this that cracked me up.
Pretty dope.
Karen asked me why when I go to the store I only buy plastic lemons and ice cream. I told her I use the lemon in my tea after she goes to work, and the ice cream, I just have a sweet tooth lately. I haven't really eaten food in a week. Junk is like that. So Karen has to go to the store and buy real food, which I never eat. I tell her I eat when she's at work. I'm getting so thin, it's hard to find clothes to fit in my closet. Of course, they say you can never be too rich or too thin. And then NIKKI goes on to say, I'd use the plastic lemons to cook up my Persian heroin with. You can use real lemons, but they're such a hassle. I would have garbage bags of used plastic lemons in my bedroom, and the maid would ask me if she could throw them away, and I'd say no. Nothing is worse for a junkie who's using Persian than running out of lemon for your dope, other than running out of dope. I remember going into the market with a shopping cart and wandering up and down the aisles. I must have spent hours there and only bought lemons and ice cream. What a beautiful picture of decay I must have been to all the mothers doing their weekly family shopping. And I love this. I love that he only ate ice cream. I love that he had plastic lemons. I think that's just
real
funny.
lemons.
It's funny looking. And because a real lemon is too much of a hassle.
Right.
And this Persian heroin is very legendary. It was Jerry Garcia always. He smoked Persian, so he didn't need the lemons. He would just smoke it on his foil. NIKKI SIXX shot the Persian, so he had to break it down with lemon juice. I never had Persian dope. I always broke down our tar with water.
Very simple.
Dopey Nation, have you ever had the Persian? Do you have any Persian stories? Please, again, write us dopeypodcast@gmail.com. Fucking, this book is great. I suggest it. The other book, The First 21, is great as well. And
Check out the YouTube channel.
subscribe to Dopey YouTube, but even more importantly, subscribe to Dopey Patreon. Oh, shit.
Uh-oh. What's that?
That's Louis Armstrong. That was my number one song to listen to in 2021.
That's not possible.
Spotify gives you, they rank it. This was my number one song in 20. Like, I played this song more often than any other. You ready? This is the old person I am. You ready? Ready?
You played a song that's 100 years old. Sorry.
I find it very relaxing. This is it's Louis
At my
Armstrong.
grandmother's house.
It's Louis Armstrong live in
Was he ever not live?
yeah, it was at a club. Live at Newport. And the song is called When It's Sleepy Time Down South.
Does he sing?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I went to Louis Armstrong Middle School.
I know. And you were a
I played the
trumpet player.
and
Amazing.
Trumpet.
It's outstanding.
It really is.
And
Good thing I mentioned that.
another can you still play?
I highly.
Do you
doubt
have a
it.
trumpet?
No, I sold it.
You sold it for dope? What did you sell the trumpet for?
I sold it for cash on eBay.
Miles
or something.
Davis was constantly pawning his trumpet for heroin, and then he'd get the club to give him money, and he'd go back and get the trumpet for the date. That
That'd
was
be
like
a cool
the big
trumpet
thing.
to buy too.
Oh yeah, if you bought Miles's trumpet
Right.
in the pawn store, no one would ever do that. Everyone knew that he would fucking get it together. You know what I mean? And get
Right.
it. All right. So that was NIKKI SIXX. I hope you guys liked it. Please subscribe to Patreon. I just posted the psychic Steph scary ghost picture of Chris. This week on Patreon is Howie's Behind the Dope, Howie's Rage.
When is that going up?
It's up.
Oh my God.
It's available on Patreon already.
Oh, boy.
You go to patreon.com/dopey podcast.
Are we going to talk about? Did we talk about the Pearl Jam thing?
Yeah, I mean, NIKKI SIXX and Eddie Vedder had a dust up actually the day we talked to NIKKI SIXX. And
Oh, that's when it happened?
Yeah, I was
funny.
actually deciding not to talk about it, which of course was another amazing interview decision I made. I just didn't want anything to go wrong. Eddie Vedder bashed NIKKI SIXX
Yep.
and Mötley Crüe for being misogynistic and corny, and NIKKI SIXX hit back saying Pearl Jam is the most boring band ever.
Well, he said that about the 90s in the interview.
Well, he said that the 90s
Yeah.
were not as fun
Yeah.
as the 80s.
Which I feel like maybe that was a backhanded, insult.
He had Pearl Jam in his mind when he
Yes.
was talking about that. But I think also the 90s dethroned Mötley Crüe.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like resentment in
Animosity, yeah.
there. And the 80s were a much more joyful time than the 90s. But the 90s, like hip hop in the
Very
90s,
heavy.
I prefer hip hop in the early 90s. Like that's my favorite era of hip hop. 80s hip hop is good too. 90s rock and roll I like 80s pop. 80s pop delivered.
Yes.
90s rock and roll delivered. I don't like Pearl Jam. I don't think, I don't like Pearl Jam.
You're going to piss a lot of people off. You just lost a lot of listeners.
What? No, they know. Chris
They know?
loved Pearl Jam too. I
Really?
don't like Eddie Vedder's voice.
Mother of black. What does he say?
And he goes,
Oh,
I'm still alive.
Fuck you, everything. I like Temple of the Dog because he was dog.
I'm going hungry.
Did I say that Long Island enough? I like Temple of the Dog.
I like Temple of the Dog.
Temple of the Dog.
I like
Chris Cornell was in that.
yeah, I could do without Chris
I like
Cornell.
What?
I can do without Eddie
Stop
Vedder.
it. Soundgarden?
I could do without it. I like Black Hole Sun, but that's about it.
I love
I could do it.
Soundgarden.
I like when it's sleepy time down south. That's what I like. But I'm whatever.
Mm.
What I really don't like is how Eddie Vedder pronounces the word ukulele. He says ukulele because he's so authentically Hawaiian.
Oh God, fuck that.
That's like, do you think NIKKI SIXX says ukulele?
No, that's pretentious. That's like what's his name? Who's that guy who went on James Lipton? He says gravitas.
Who is that?
Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah. What?
Gravitas.
Yeah,
It's like, what's your favorite word? And he goes, gravitas.
Does he say that's his favorite word?
Yes, it's a great
awesome.
go. They
That's
play it on
funny.
Stern all the time.
Now, here we go. We're going to do, before we go, my favorite thing is to do some Dopey emails.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some nice Dopey emails. And I love hearing from the fans. I love hearing from the Dopey Nation.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here we go. I got this email, and I just need to read it. I don't have the beginning of it. Oh, she writes that she joined Patreon, but that's not why she's writing. She's writing to say because she appreciates that Aaron keeps nagging me to go see the doctor. That's a good friend. She says, "Hi, Aaron." And since I'm here, I'll hit you with a little Dopey. I recently remembered a time I accidentally smoked PCP. I needed to score dope, and my dealer kept doing the be there in 15 minutes bullshit, and it had been 3 hours. So I decided to confront him at the biker bar he hung out at. I show up, I get my bundles, and I shockingly leave without getting blackout drunk. I go outside, and a houseless man, not homeless, but houseless man, asks if I want to share a blunt with him. I don't even like weed, but I think, why not? So we share his blunt. We're laughing and having a good time, and then something shifts, and he just takes off running. No clue why. So I get in the car, and I'm fixing my shot. I get well, and I'm ready to drive home, but all of a sudden I am confused. I can't figure out how to start the car. Like, absolutely cannot understand how to make my car move. I feel like an alien in someone else's spaceship. I start panicking and crying because I've never felt like this before. I'm trying to calm down, but I can't. My brain and body are not communicating. I look around and see someone walking their dog. I then start thinking that I'm telepathically communicating with him and his dog. Then I'm convinced he's M. Ward, the musician, who I don't even listen to, and I'm telepathically telling him what to sing. He's not singing. Eventually, I guess I nod out, and when I come to, I realized I'd been trying to start my car with the flame of my Bic lighter, and the plastic part of my ignition is melted and fucked up. I laugh, put my keys in the ignition, and head home. Hope that made you laugh, and hope you're well. Stay strong, Dopey Nation, and toodles for Chris. And that is from CJ, and I love that story.
You know what that reminds me of?
What?
Wasn't there a story about somebody who went to the store and then was trying to get into the wrong car?
That was me.
I know.
That reminds you.
That sort of reminds me of
Her
that.
PCP story reminds me of that.
The guys that came out after you?
I'm going to read one more. And this is from a guy named Anton. And he says, "Hey, Dave, what's up, man? Fairly new listener here. I never smoked PCP, by the way. Howie, did you ever smoke PCP?
I think the last time I did PCP was probably in 1954.
When I say PCP, like what pops
I say
in your head?
hello.
What pops
I say
in your head?
hi. What?
Does anything pop in your head with a PCP reference? Is there anything?
No, I don't know. The story you just told?
What about Trading Places? Did you ever see Trading Places? And they plant PCP on Dan Aykroyd, and forget it.
I have no recollection of that.
All right.
I could barely remember what I ate
All right, just
for
stop.
breakfast.
Just stop it. Just stop it.
I'm sorry.
All right. Hey, Dave, what's up, man? Fairly new listener here. My brother turned me on to your show about a month ago. Can you please pay attention?
I'm listening.
Jesus Christ. What are you doing on your phone?
I had to check a text.
You need to listen to this.
All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's up, man? Fairly new listener here. I just threw a pencil at Howie. That wasn't on camera.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah. It's safe to say I am obviously a recovering heroin addict. I just laughed myself senseless on one episode, and I felt I had to show my appreciation. My brother told me about Chris and what happened, and it fucking sucks. I don't know what to say except that I bet he'd want the show to keep going. I feel like I've gotten to know you two over the time I've been listening, and it fucking hurts me too. Anyway, man, your show does so much good. It's hard to believe. I know for sure that it has helped me and my bro stay clean and to be optimistic about a clean future, which I never, ever thought could happen. I guess we spent so much time feeling like pieces of shit and being ashamed about all the shit we've done. It's truly fantastic to be able to laugh about it and realize that we are just human and shit happens. I guess I'm just saying thank you for giving me and my bro some positivity in a time when there hasn't been much of that for a long, long while. That is a gift that no one, not friends, family, rehab counselors, etc., have been able to give. I am forever grateful for that, and I know my brother is too. Take care, brother. Anton. All right. Thank you,
nice.
Anton. That's a beautiful email. It makes me emotional.
Cry.
Huh?
So it makes you cry.
Well, it makes me emotional. It's an amazing thing that that this show exists and that NIKKI SIXX contributes and that people write in and that Howie is so crazy and
OCD.
and Howie set up all this shit. Like Howie, I know he's very beautiful and obviously a dynamic co-host,
Right.
but he's a technical savant. He
Right.
set up a lot of beautiful shit, and I don't know. I'm very happy with what we're doing. So please be in touch. Fucking join Patreon, subscribe to YouTube, buy that Magic Mind stuff. It's actually pretty tasty. And most importantly, stay strong, Dopey Nation, and fucking toodles for Chris. And thank you,
Toodles
Howie.
For Chris. I'm going to start saying that.
Oh, yeah?
Dopey, I'm face down on the floor.